Hey, we're back here on Astrology Tonight TV. I'm Thomas Lyons, your host. We're going to talk politics a little bit now. That's something we're going to do a lot of in the future shows. There's so much to learn and so much to talk about. But basically, governments have astrology charts too. They have their own birth charts, whether that government be your local town or your county or your city or your state, your nation. Each one of them has its own beginning, just like a person is born, or a marriage begins, or a corporation is founded, or something happens. That moment in space and time is a unique moment known as the birth of whatever that thing is. Now, about a week ago, Kim Jong-un, who is the current dictator of the country of North Korea, the son of Kim Jong-il and the grandson of Kim Il-sung, who was the first modern dictator of this new nation of North Korea. It got me to wondering, how did this all come about, that these two nations separated? Because Korea is one of the oldest peoples, one of the oldest identifiable nations or cultures on the earth. They are thousands of years old as a recognizable culture. The U.S. is an infant by comparison. And so I wondered, how did we get there, that these two countries split apart? Well, what happened was, at the end of World War II in 1945, the United States, working with the Soviet Union, who had been their partners against the Nazi Germany threat for Europe and the world, they decided to partition the country into a north and southern part of Korea. They created North and South Korea at that time, with the Soviets having a new communist government they were helping to build in North Korea, and the new South Koreans being supported by the Americans and democracy. And I wondered, how is it, if these two nations split apart, or became two nations at the same time, this ancient nation split apart at the same moment, how is it that their nations were so different, these modern nations of North and South Korea? So I looked it up and I found out that their splitting up kind of happened a little bit differently. What happened is when they established themselves officially as separate nations, as separate governments, that those were two separate moments, two separate astrology charts. They happened about 26 days apart in the year of 1948. And in 1948, South Korea, on the 15th of August, created the new official nation of South Korea. And about 26 days later, North Korea, on the 10th of September 1948, created its official nation, or declared itself an official nation. Now, I don't have a time of day for when they officially became separate individual nations, but they are 26 days apart, which is fascinating because it makes for very, very different charts. Very, very different nations and very different personalities, as shown by the national charts. South Korea was born, interestingly enough, with the planet Uranus, an 84-year cycle, at the very last degree of Gemini. Now again, as I said a little earlier, when a planet is the very last degree of something, there's a culmination and a completion of something, often a major shift or transformation of some kind happens just as you're about to move into the next sign. Well, Uranus, the planet of revolutions and radical things happen in the very last degree of Gemini. Gemini is the twins. Gemini is the two, the one and the other, the two sides of the same self, North and South Korea. And yet 26 days later, when North Korea declared itself a separate nation, Uranus had already moved into Cancer, into a different sign. And so the radicalness that happens in North Korea has more to do with the radicalness or instability. Uranus is also instability, the unstable side of the home front, because Cancer in a nation's chart represents the home front, the people and the home front and their family lives. And so the radicalness that comes into North Korea in their chart, 26 days after South Korea's chart, is a radicalness or instability on the home front, on people's personal lives and home lives. South Korea has a very powerful chart. It's a Sun in Leo nation. It's very proud. It's very sure of itself. It's very adventurous. It wants to go out there and create new things. And its Sun was conjunct Pluto, which is power and money and banking, and also conjunct Saturn, which is industry and government and corporations and hard work and building towards the future and achieving great things. And it's also, the Sun is also conjunct Mercury. All of this is in Leo. And the Mercury is the mind and the intellect and creative ideas and new possibilities. And so you have this nation that is filled with power and will and discipline and creativity and willing to expand and grow. And they have grown into this extraordinarily successful nation, one of the most successful nations on the earth right now. And yet their brother, if you will, in North Korea, established as a separate nation only 26 days later, has its Sun in Virgo, not Leo. Its Sun in Virgo. Now Virgo on the high side is hard work, it's discipline, it is also about limitation, can be about tough times, shouldering burdens. And whereas South Korea is full of energy and vitality and creativity, North Korea is very much a sort of a lower side of Virgo nation. It's about rules and hardship and constrictions and discipline and harsh judgments by the people and harsh judgments by the government. It's a very limiting kind of society. South Korea's Mars. Going back to South Korea, its Mars is in Libra, conjunct Neptune. So when South Korea became a separate nation, even though they had a very brief war with the North because the North invaded them and had a 3-year war called the Korean War, South Korea is not a warring nation. That's not what they want. Their Mars, their military energy, is in Libra, which is exactly the opposite of war. It's looking for balance, it's looking for diplomacy, it's looking for harmony, and its Mars is conjunct Neptune, which means it's visionary, it's a dream, it dreams of peace, it dreams of harmony, it dreams of balance. But only 26 days later, North Korea's Mars, the energy of war and will and desire, is in Scorpio. It's a very, very warring kind of energy. It's all about wanting to get even. It's about wanting to take what it can for itself. It's about scheming and backroom deals and secrecy. But it's a very, very warring culture. So you see that even the moments that these two nations split in half after thousands of years of being one nation, when that happened, we had two very different birth charts for those nations and two very different futures that the two have moved into since then. I did take a quick look at the chart for Kim Jong-un. I was going to talk about that and see what it looked like for what he was going to be doing for the nation. But then I discovered with a little bit of research that the North Korean government has given an official birth day for this particular young man as January 8th, 1984, but there's a lot of rumors that he was actually born sometime in 1983, and that they had their own reasons, perhaps Chinese astrology, for choosing and making him January 8th, 1984, instead of sometime back in 1983. So I'm going to leave him alone for now. But what I can guess on, as far as Kim Jong-un's immediate choices for his nation, is there are rumors that he's been heard singing the Taylor Swift song, "We Are Never, Ever, Ever Getting Back Together." So as far as the North and South getting back together again, if that song has any meaning, it doesn't look good right away.